Hello and welcome to episode 82 of When the Flames Go Up, the ATFC podcast. We are back after our extended hiatus over Christmas and January, and a lot has happened, a lot has changed, and we've got a lot of catching up to do. So there's going to be kind of quick fire 2 episodes out this week, and the first of which is this episode 82, which is going to cover the ownership change that we saw at the beginning of the year, our reactions to that, worries for the future, maybe reasons to be positive, I'm sure, are also in there. So it's myself, Julian, and CJ on the main pod, and then we had thoughts from Guy and Ian, which I'll splice in to add to it as well. So enjoy this episode and let us know your thoughts as fans, how you're feeling about it. Are you worried? Are you pessimistic or more on the optimistic side? I'm interested to know because, to be honest, for me, I'm still catching up myself on all things Aldershot since I've been away. So let us know. Email atfcpodcast@gmail.com, and I'm sure we'll have future episodes on the ownership situation and the ground and any other worries that crop up in the next few months. So enjoy the episode, and as always, up the shots. So the shots are now under the ownership, the chairmanship of Deane Wood, who's been with the club since investing in 2018. Outgoing chairman Shahid Azeem and director John Leppard announced that they were going to step back. They've written off all their loans, transferring them to Deane at no cost. So seemingly, top line, that sounds fine. The kind of timeline of how it happened was a bit strange. It all seemed to come at once. We get a New Year's message from Shahid Azeem. Everything's fine, just all the best for 2026. And then a few days later, we have a new chairman after 12 and a half years under Shahid Azeem. So it was all a bit of a whirlwind. And then the next day we get the interview with Deane Wood. I guess the top line of that, the BBC article basically puts it in the shortest amount of words, which is just shots £1 million in debt but safe, says owner, which is that's basically where we are. And I guess it seems to be something that follows the shots around every year. We've had a period of relative don't know what's the word, relative calm, I suppose, maybe for 5 or 6 years, but obviously I don't know what's going on under the surface. So yeah, to discuss all that's happened in the last few weeks, and to maybe look towards the future and what happens next, we've got Julian and CJ. I guess first up, I'm going to come to you, Julian. But yeah, your general first impressions of everything that's happened in the last few weeks.
Yeah, it's a tough one to call, isn't it? Because you see speculation on various news outlets and media forums, and shots are close to going into administration, and this has been leaked and that's been leaked. And I'm old enough now to read a lot of these comments and not really pay any attention to them until I see the facts. But you could argue as well that there was no smoke without a fire, and where are these stories coming from, and why are they coming out now? And then a week or two later, off the back of it, you then get this scenario where I think you pointed it out earlier on. Shahid was saying only a matter of days, weeks ago that the score is 1.3 million and someone's got to pay a lot of money if they want to take the club on, and he's trying to find the right owner, and no one's got up to the mark yet. And it felt right from not only this season but from seasons before that I felt he did have the best interest of the club, and he wasn't just going to sell out to anybody. But I just can't help feeling that his hand has been forced with a sudden change of, okay, let's write everything off and let's just go. something's happened which we haven't been told about, and again, the speculation will be rife, I'm sure. But I think we've ended up probably in the best scenario that we could have been in for the situation we're in. Deane Wood is a successful businessman. He's allegedly saved us on a couple of occasions where he's thrown his money in, and by all accounts is quite happy to not ever see it again. But I'm just wondering whether, and it'd be interesting to hear the other points of view on this, whether it came to a situation where Deane was the only option, and I'm just wondering whether that's why things move forward really quickly. Takeover bids, things like that. There's been lots of talk over the last few months about takeover bids, hasn't there? Mysterious consortium from Holland, and CJ's favourite, Glenn Tamplin, who is often mentioned, and I'm sure CJ won't be able to get through the whole of this without mentioning him. But there's been a few names out there, hasn't there? And I'm just wondering again whether this is the stepping stone to an actual takeover. But who knows? That's just literally no speculation. That's just literally making 2 and 2 add up to 5. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I don't know whether we'll probably talk about it a little bit later. But I was going to mention about that first interview with Deane Wood. But I'll leave it back to you guys and tell me what you think of the situation.
Yeah, we'll definitely touch on that opening interview and the kind of the clips and the things that have come out since then. CJ, I guess your initial thoughts of everything that's transpired in the last month.
Well, I think me and you were probably in the same situation as that. We went to bed one night with Shahid Azeem and woke up the next morning with Deane Wood. And it was a bit
Not
of
for
a
the first time.
whirlwind.
No, well, cut that out. Horrible.
And so over the course of like what 9 hours of sleep, I've woken up to a new ownership, a new chairman, and a new interview. So it was an interesting dynamic, really. Obviously, I know we'll touch on the interview in a bit, but it was interesting how the whole dynamic happened. Obviously, I've spoken to people around the club and stuff like that, and it's almost seemed like it was on the cards for a while. It seemed like people had an idea something was going on behind the scenes, whether it was as blatant as it was, or like for in-house people, or whether it was just as much of a shock. But it all just seemed to happen too quickly for it to be just overnight job. It seemed like this was going on in the background very quietly, and then it probably got to the point with Shahid that obviously his stock wasn't worth the weight in gold compared to obviously Deane Wood. Like, you look at the BBC, I'm just looking at it now, the BBC report on it, and it says like his Deane Wood's like shares, basically his loans became shares because it overrided everyone else pretty much. And I think that was the general factor, is obviously the debts that we took on and stuff like that. I can't remember if he said that we're now debt free. I can't remember if he mentioned that or not, but it seems like he wants full control of the club, and that's a big thing that he wants. That he wants to take over the shares of the rest of the directors, and he wants full custodial control of it, which would be interesting long term, and to see what that looks like. Obviously, with him making full decisions rather than taking it to a board. But look, like Julian said, and it's very well stated, he's a very successful businessman in terms of in the local area. He's a local guy. He's obviously full of energy. Everyone speaks very highly of him. You look at when he got announced, a lot of the stock car guys were commenting, going, "Is this the same Deane Wood?" And like how good he is, and what a top bloke. So look, he came across interesting initially in that interview, but he was full of energy, and it was nice to have a very different perspective of character from what we normally used to in that conversation with a chairman. So look, firstly as well, we have to say thank you to Shahid and John Leppard as well. I think that's massive what they did for us, taking us out of administration in 2013, and they did stabilize us. Like, yes, it wasn't pretty. yes, they got a lot of stick for what they've done, but like ultimately that they kept us afloat for a long period of time, and it's almost that Mike Ashley at Newcastle situation. They didn't spend loads of money. We saw success in that period. We won the FA Trophy, which was almost a nice thank you and goodbye sort of situation. They made the decision, like obviously Tommy going at that sort of time. Whether that was controllable or not, we don't know. But it all they've done enough for the club to say, like, was it a successful stint? Yes, they kept the club alive. What was it successful in terms of trophies and league positions? No, probably not. But you look at the memories we've had in their stewardship. Obviously, coming down from League Two, they came in, kept us afloat. That points deduction that year when we came back in, we stayed up. You look at the playoff cap runs that we've had with obviously Tommy, with Gary Waddock, obviously Terry Brown coming back into the fold. So you look at it and you go, for the long part, like they've done a lot for us in terms of nostalgia, in terms of bringing around obviously new sponsors into the club. Bridges have obviously become a stalwart for us, and all the agreements, and obviously Mark Butler obviously came into the tenure in that period as well. So you look at it and you go, like, as a stability wise, obviously every football club loses money. Like, if you're an absolute wild person to go into football and think you're going to make any money. I think Deane Wood stated that as well. Like, it's basically a sieve. You're going to put it in, and it's just going to filter out in some way, shape, or form. So for them to have lasted as long as they did, with all the stick that they got, especially in the last like probably 4 or 5 years, uh, all credit to them. Was it the right time to go? Probably later, probably better late than never. We could have probably done with this a couple of years ago. I know that consortiums have come in and shown interest in the past. Whether they're the right people or not, I don't know. Obviously, Deane Wood spoke about one of the consortiums coming in and wanting to almost bankrupt the club and start again. Obviously, that can't happen. So look, we're I feel like we're in a bit more of a comfortable position. Um, Hopefully in the next few years the ground development actually kicks in and takes place, not just talking about it in a link on a website. So yeah, I think as a club it feels better. Results have obviously perked up as well. And look, it's just onwards and upwards, I think, in terms of Deane Wood. And if he takes full control, does that lead to a consortium takeover in the future?
Yeah, well, yeah, but both of you've kind of alluded to that. That might be the next play. I guess, yeah. For me, I've generally got I don't know, quite a pessimistic feeling about everything. I know it's change is hard regardless, but I don't know. It just feels like a timeline that we're on right now that you look back in a few years and say like, what the signs were there that things were wrong. And I guess that's maybe just an Aldershot fan mentality. The administration word just seems to follow us around. Like somehow millions of pounds of debt is constantly following us around as well. Uh, the ground redevelopment will always follow us around. Like yeah. I think it was nice. It was nice. We had a nice 12 years where I did generally feel like everyone had the best interests of the club at heart. I think we were broadly sustainable. Obviously, we were sustainable as a uh, lower mid-table National League side, but we were still sustainable. So I guess, yeah, obviously, I'm very thankful for Shahid and all the directors that have been a part of that spell, because it's a long time. It's a long time. I mean, 12 and a half years in this day and age, for things not to go completely wrong is very rare. And I think to not have an absolute chancer in charge of this club is also something that shouldn't be taken lightly. Like it's very, I mean, every club in this league that we're in has probably got an owner that wants to be gone, or the fans want them out. But I think, yeah, that period of stability, I just hope we don't look back in a few years and think what I'd give for stability, because yeah, we've had a month of upheaval, and yes, like the results on the pitch will help. Like if we're winning games, people will be less likely to query things. But I mean, the question on the ground redevelopment is going to come up time and time again. All these kind of things. So yeah, slightly pessimistic at the moment, but yes, let's hope that Deane Wood continues to act a good game as well as he talks. So yeah, I guess let's move on to the interview that came out the day after. I can't remember where I was. I was on a bus somewhere, and I used 4G especially to download the YouTube video. I've got my phone bill through, and it wasn't pretty, but I think I can bill that back to Deane Wood, I believe. So yeah, it was a kind of, I don't know, how would we describe the interview? It was a kind of a rambling discussion of what's happened, where the club is. Lots of comment on like we mentioned about what other consortiums wanted to do, bankrupt the club and stuff. But it seems generally very excited to be here. So yeah, Julian, your thoughts on the interview and any standout bits that you heard.
Yeah, my first thought was, would the EBB stadium make a great speedway track? But I don't think it would. So he's not here for that. But yeah, sort of 4 or 5 things really stood out for me in that first interview. I liked his transparency. I thought he was he sort of gave us a commitment that things will be more transparent, which is pretty much what supporters are looking for, isn't it? They just want to know what's going on in most situations. So that's promising. The proof will obviously be in the pudding with that one. He talked about the sort of debt figure. I think he mentioned £1 million, and please correct me if I'm wrong on that, but that's the sort of figure I've got in my head from listening to that a month or so ago. It felt like he was quite frustrated with decision making, and it may have been that decisions that he was seeing being made weren't being made quick enough or decisive enough. And I just got a feeling that his frustration levels were building while he was alongside Shahid and John. And again, I'm just making assumptions here, but I'm just wondering whether he just felt that he was able to perhaps offer a different way of decision making, which Shahid and John were in the end of it able to see and to go along with. So yeah, I think his decision making skills, especially as we've alluded to already, with the fact that of how he runs his businesses and he's successful, I think that's going to be something that will be interesting, bearing in mind his now control over the club. And the other thing I've noticed as well is that he is quite active on Facebook as well, and you'd never get Shahid making comments on Facebook. So I think watch this space for that one, and watch this space, because you never know when Deane's going to pop up with a message or two. So that will be quite interesting. But I think I mentioned it in a previous pod that I'm just wondering whether this is something that Deane's in for the long term, or whether he's just looking to stabilise and then move the club on, because he's confessed that the only reason he got involved in the club was through Mark Butler. So he's not a die-hard football man, but he did also say that it was growing on him, and I think that Woking semi-final cup game was probably the first time where he actually felt something, and that can only be a good thing. If he's getting the bug, then that's a good thing. But I think we're going to benefit from the fact that he is a businessman first and a supporter second. I think that will help, and if he has to make some decisions, then so be it. But the other thing that just springs to mind for me is that old saying, just be careful what you wish for. And I think, as CJ pointed out, and you will, that we do need to give thanks to Shahid and John for what they've done. They have given us an element of stability over the last few years, and let's hope that Deane can do something similar or even better.
Yeah, we were mentioning off air, myself and CJ about the Facebook thing. I guess it's something that will crop up. I mean, my thought on it was basically that I didn't enjoy Tommy Widrington posted on Twitter when he was manager of the club. I don't really appreciate a chairman comment on Facebook. Uh, I think you can be transparent and not have to kind of answer questions from fans directly. I mean, admittedly, I think in this honeymoon period, which will probably last till the end of the season, you'd probably get away with it. But give it 6 months, and some difficult questions are going to be asked of you, and it's no longer going to be my mate Deane is going to comment on this post. It's going to be, what is Deane doing? What are the next steps? What's going on with this, with that? You said this 2 months ago. It hasn't happened. So I think, yeah, that's as you say, Julian, definitely something to watch over the next couple of months. CJ, I'll come to you. What was it? I didn't write it down. I was going to mention something, but maybe it'll come to me. CJ, your thoughts on the interview with Deane Wood?
Yeah, obviously, I touched on it before, and it was refreshing to have someone just speak so openly and honestly. And he spoke about if supporters want to see the books, then he'll open the books, and if supporters want to see this, that, and the other. But I think the other thing as well is almost a rallying cry, is that I spoke about it before, is that football is a sieve, and money comes in, money goes straight out, and more money goes out than what goes in. And it was the fact that he almost did a rallying cry for supporters to be like, look, if you're a tradie, come and support, come and help us, like take some trees out, take help with the plumbing, help with this, that, and the other. And he said, like, I'll be next to you doing it with you. So I think the fact that he is so hands on can just only be a blessing, especially for this short period of where it is everyone needs to sort of muck in together and dig in deep for a little bit, at least until the end of the season. And I think he is, like, you can see there's an ambition there with him. It's his local club. He's been invested for a while. His money's in the club, so it's I think it's only going to go one way, really. I hope anyway, and that's up. And that his ambition takes over, and he gets the bug religiously, and all of a sudden it doesn't become just like a little passion project. It becomes a like full blown attack on trying to win and dominate. And hopefully it doesn't turn into a stock car racing event, and we go from a ground development to a new ground development with a different style of pitch. Um, but yeah, I think he's got the best interests at heart. He seems like a real genuine guy, and obviously you mentioned Facebook stuff. I think that's just his character and his passion override a little bit. He does need to probably rein it in a bit now he's in charge. Um, it would have been interesting having him on Facebook and Tommy on X. That I think that would have been an interesting dynamic of. But yeah, look, it's we're in a much better position. I feel off the pitch. It just obviously we need that stability now. Have we sorted a media manager? Have we sorted a secretary? Are places behind the scenes getting filled? It was interesting that our academy manager obviously came out of an interview, and it seems like he's doing absolutely every job in the world, every night of the week. So we just seem a bit short-staffed across the whole club at the minute, and it would be nice that by the end of the year we're in a much more stable position. And by end of the year, I mean like December. I don't mean just like the end of the season. It's going to take a while to get his grips on the club and to sort of balance the books a little bit. And yeah, I think long term, if he gets full control and he can do things his way, I think success will come with it. He doesn't seem like the type of person who's just happy with sitting still. Um, I think he struggled with that in the interview, actually sitting still. So it seems like someone who's itching to just get everything done, and it's not going to be all at once. And I think he stated that in there. It's that this will be a build. I think John Coleman, with a steady head in charge, get us keep us in the league, and then next year rebuild with a new squad, fresh faces, and just almost cleanse the club a little bit of the last few years, and have a fresh approach. And I think it's just getting to that point of the end of the season where we're still a National League club, and then next year we rebuild, we consolidate, we mid-table finish, and then the following year is go and attack the league. And I feel like that's probably where Deane Wood's at in terms of it all as well. If we can keep obviously John Coleman, he keeps obviously we see success with him, then great. But you look at it from the perspective of this short period. You look at the management team; we're very short-handed in terms of the management team. We don't officially have an assistant. You look on the website and it says John Coleman's first team coach, and like it doesn't state manager, it doesn't state head coach or anything like that. It just says first team coach. And then the next person's David Smalley, who's goalkeeping coach, and then Terry Brown, and then it's literally 4 people running the team at the minute. It doesn't state anything about James Henry being a player coach anymore, so that's interesting. So yeah, I think a lot needs to be done. It just needs to be done on a steady pace. I think if too much happens overnight, then it can implode a little bit. But yeah, like you said, there's always going to be pessimism around it. We're a National League club. We're not Wrexham. We haven't got a documentary on Disney. We haven't got millions of fan bases across the world. It's just a small little club with a big reputation almost, and we're not the giant killers that we used to be anymore. We're sort of not one of the longest serving National League clubs. So I think it's just being realistic in terms of where we're at, and I think Deane was quite realistic in terms of that as well. Is that we kind of need to humble ourselves a little bit. You look at the league now, and we're not one of the big hitters anymore. We're not one of the big names, and for a long period of time in the National League, we were. So yeah, I think it's exciting. I think there's an opportunity here for him to really like get his teeth into it and drive us forward. And the supporters just have to be on side for this period of time, really, until obviously something drastic happens or whatever. I just think it's an exciting, it's a fresh start, and we just need to get to the end of the season for it to sort of see the benefits.
Now, turning to off the pitch matters, there's been a big talking point while we've been away. On January the 5th, Aldershot saw a change of ownership, with director Deane Wood taking sole control of the club. That followed Shahid Azeem and John Leppard writing off their loans and transferring their shares. Shahid has taken a lot of stick about underinvestment and more recently not fully capitalising on the FA Trophy win, but I do think he deserves thanks for this. Both he and Leppard chose not to load the club with more debt or push it towards administration. Writing off that level of money cannot have been an easy decision, and so supporters should acknowledge that. And what is the financial situation? The picture is, it still isn't great, but it is reasonably stable. Since the restart in 2013, when we went into administration, the club has been accumulating losses. Shahid suggested in his last interview that we're around 2 million in his debt, 2 million down, although that may refer to operating losses rather than current debt. The rumours about administration last month were what prompted that interview, if you recall. But based on the latest accounts from 2024, net debt looks to be around £1 million, which is actually an improvement on 2023. It's not great, but at National League level, it could be a lot worse. The key question now is whether Wood can stabilise and gradually reduce that figure, which means generating alternative sources of revenue rather than simply relying on owner funding. And my main concern, of course, is obvious: relegation. If we go down, the club becomes a far less attractive proposition for any future investor or consortium. There's also the question of squad investment. Stability is one thing, stagnation is another, and we can't afford to drift. In terms of positives, Deane Wood has been a director since 2018 and has already invested a considerable amount in the club. He's heavily involved in motorsport, particularly oval racing through Speedworth and Inca Race, I think it's called. I did smile at his LinkedIn profile listing stock cars, hot rods and bangers. I'm hoping Aldershot doesn't fall into that last category though. His first interview was refreshing. It was blunt, especially about the previous ownership and management, but that's probably deliberate. He needs to signal a break with the past, even if he was on the board during Shahid's tenure. But I do have one gripe. I really didn't like his suggestion about cutting down the trees at the entrance to the ground. Quite apart from whether he even can, that may well be a council issue, I honestly don't see the point. Those trees give the stadium character. Football grounds don't need to look like retail parks. And where does all of this change of ownership really leave us? If Wood can keep the debt under control, generate new income, and keep the club in the National League, then Aldershot has options. That might mean long-term ownership under him, a future consortium, or even, who knows, a return to some form of fan ownership. But everything hinges on survival this season. Stay up and the club remains viable. Go down and the picture becomes much darker.
The Shahid Azeem era has finally come to a close after 12 and a half years of Shahid in the chairman's spot and John Leppard alongside him. Both of these men have walked away from the club and a hell of a lot of money owed to them. I hate to think about how much they might have given away and sacrificed over the years for themselves and their families for it to end this way. Sadly, this had to happen for the good of the club to survive and move forward. Recently, worrying rumours about unpaid bills had started to surface, and it seems that despite some public rebuttals trying to dismiss the social media noise, all is not well financially again at ATFC. Of course, it rarely has been, but it feels very odd that we find ourselves here again, as the last few years, especially under Tommy Widdrington, we've seen a number of possible windfalls that we didn't see before, with the COVID years, the Danny Searle, Mark Molesley exiting cups at the earliest opportunity. There were also potentially significant transfer fees received in recent years, such as those rumoured for Tyler Cordner, Josh Stokes and Lauren Tallage. There's of course been increased attendances from where we were pre-COVID. We've had cup run money. Of course, the West Brom money hasn't materialised and we don't know if it ever will. And of course, the big one, Wembley, which I felt was going to be the main gift for the club to set itself up in a more sustainable way and not have things be as they have been. Sadly, that opportunity has been soon squandered. The increase in season ticket and gate prices killing all the goodwill and the chance to perhaps win a few of those Wembley day trippers back. And it's very hard to understand why it's all unravelled so quickly from there. What's happened to the cash flow that means that we've ended up in this state? Deane Wood's now in sole charge, and this means that the ownership and the debt situation is more straightforward, which will hopefully help a sale or help investment. However, I have a lot of worries. Deane joined in 2018 to help out as a favour to commercial director Mark Butler. And the main part is his introductory interview where he said on YouTube that he's in too deep to just walk away. It may now be less complicated than having 3 people owed, but one with a bigger amount still may prove a huge stumbling block for any would-be purchasers or investors. If in taking over, Deane has also had to put in even more money to pay bills that were not being paid by the previous regime and steady the ship, then he's going to go even deeper in, which feels like a very dangerous place to be. This on top of the always difficult month of January for cash flow, as well as the bad luck with the weather of postponement of Saturday's home game against Carlisle, not helping either. Things may have to get worse before they can get better. It's also hard to see where the funds will come from that we've had in previous years, with likely no big money player sales or any cup prize money likely to arrive anytime soon. I understand that there might be some funds brought in with the departures of players such as Ryan Jones, but these are likely to go immediately on giving John Coleman some budget to make sure that we achieve Deane's main aim at the minute, which is staying in the National League however we can, so we can go again in the 26-27 season. There are positives though. Deane's certainly got the backing of the support at the minute, and I think he'll benefit a lot by just simply not being Shahid Azeem. I know a few supporters who've chosen to return on this basis, and it's also refreshing and good to hear much more info come out of the club, which has been massively lacking in recent seasons. I also appreciate his call to arms in terms of asking for volunteers to help around the club, and I hope that this honeymoon period extends into something more sustainable, whether that's under Deane or under someone new to come in and pull us out of this situation. Cheers all.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of exactly what he said in his interview, wasn't it? That we just need to stay up this season. I think he said, something like if we end up in the middle of the table, like Coleman's done a good job. Like, I mean, the end of this season. I mean, because 2 months ago, we were hearing the words administration, and we were like 22nd in the league and really, really in dire straits. I guess that's why, coming back to it, and we've got, I know it's a new, fresh start, but I mean, we're still largely in debt, and will be at the end of this season. And I don't know. There's plenty of like cynical thoughts, and I guess that's why I said before about Facebook. Like, I think that people will be cynical. Like, people are pessimistic in football. Football fans are, and they're fickle as well. Like, don't think you can tally up to some fans, and they're going to treat you well for the 100% time you're here. Because obviously you mentioned like just an offhand thing, like something about Speedway, put in a barrier car thing. I mean, my mind immediately says, well, the land on, the land where the ground is. What is that? Could that be a new place? It's just all these things will, are likely to come up when you're the chairman of a club, and a club where people are kind of terrified, I think, of things going south again. We'll try and end it. I mean, I feel like I'm just bringing pure negative energy, but I feel like in general we're broadly positive about this. Julian, how are you feeling, like, in general?
Yeah, I think you summed it up nicely, Will. 2 months ago it was administration and relegation were the two words. Now it doesn't feel that way as much. I was genuinely looking through the National South fixture list almost for next season at one point, thinking, I can get to that one. That one's a bit too far. I can get to that one. Now I'm looking at who's coming down from League Two, thinking, God, I hope Newport come down because that's just down the road for me. And I hope Harrogate stay up because that's an absolute miles away from me. So, but I wasn't doing that 2 months ago, and I am now. So that means that I'm obviously looking a bit more positive than I was. So better. So my words are, look at the Newports and not at the Walton and Hershams.
Lovely new tattoo idea for all Shots fans to get. Great. Well, I'm sure we'll be. We'll probably have to do a deep dive into Shahid's tenureship in general. I mean, it's a long old time, right? And 12 and a half years is a lot to dig into. We've had some great seasons in there, and obviously we had some low moments, and obviously the highest of highs very recently, which is, I guess, that is maybe the weird thing about this whole thing, is it absolutely blows my mind that 6 months ago we were at Wembley. I cannot believe that was the same football club. It's just I don't know. It just feels very strange. Like, new manager, new owner, or kind of the players are leaving that were there. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I'm not terribly excited, but hopefully it's hopefully it's just we'll just breeze through to the end of the season, then we can figure it out. But yeah, let's hope we can try and do some updates on the ownership. The ground redevelopment thing is something that will obviously come up again, and something we haven't really talked about, like, specifically. It's just been offhand. So maybe that's another idea for a future episode. Although it's now sounding like a meeting, so I'll.
I think just on that. Sorry, Will. If obviously we got reprieved in that period of time with Shahid, would we look at it differently had we gone down that period of time? I think that's the other thing as well. Is we got the reprieve in that period with Gateshead obviously going into their situation, and obviously we were relegated in that season. We went from 2 playoff years to a relegation. So would we look at that period of time with Shahid and John very differently had that situation actually occurred?
Yeah, and we should have been relegated, and we would have been relegated in the COVID season because we were absolutely dross. So it wouldn't have mattered. We were going to get relegated at some point, and somehow we haven't. I still beggars belief how we didn't end up in National League South. And to be honest, we're saying this, and we're 20th in the National League. Like, we've had a couple of good results, yeah, but I mean, we're not out of the woods by a long stretch. And Julian mentioned in Dagenham earlier has put that in my head. They were about, I don't know, it felt like they were about 14th about this time of last season. So
yeah, I saw a league table this time last year, and they were mid-table comfortably. I remember they came to our place, didn't they? And they got a 0-0 draw, I think it was, and just sort of fell through the floor. And yeah, you look at the strength of the National League South now as well. And to answer your point there, CJ, I'm not sure we would have come back up.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree.
It was a little bit weaker in those years, but if you look at it now, you've got Maidstone, Maidenhead, Dagenham, Torquay, Dorking. None of them are running away with the league.
Even Chelmsford with their money and stuff now.
Yeah,
like they're falling away. But
yeah, and then you look at some of the signings that Tommy's making. I mean, he's taken Adam May to the team this week. Adam May could walk into any team in the non-league South, and probably in most in the National League as well. So I think the theme of this pod really is survival, isn't it? Let's stay up. Let's hope that the ownership stabilizes things, and then we can have a look at it again in the summer with a fresh pair of eyes.
Absolutely. Right. We will leave it there. Thank you, Julian, and thank you, CJ.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers.